the pods are here, are in the other newsroom. If you have a pod session for the next one, it says pods. And what pod means is that it's one of the main newsroom areas. So this is a classroom. And we have these seminar rooms where we have different classes. We have conference spaces. Everything's very open. The newsroom itself is, as you can see, a really open space. And there are pods in there. So like I teach a class in the middle of that newsroom. It's called Advanced Reporting. And we're doing some really extraordinary in-depth projects. Students will be doing 2 really in-depth multimedia projects. But so we're right out in the middle of the newsroom, and there's lots of action and a lot of energy and lots of creative ways for people to engage with stories. I'm Abigail Foerstner, by the way. I teach in the newsroom with Scott Anderson, who's the managing editor and was just here, and he's corralling 2 of the other profs who also teach in the newsroom, Stephan Garnett and Michael Deas. So we'll all be in here soon and tell you a little bit more about some of the core reporting opportunities in the newsroom. Regardless of what specialization you're in, you'll be able to work through the newsroom and really, really work on these incredible stories that Greg was talking about, where you get to bring creativity and imagination. Good reporting, you know, there's these foundations. I'm an alum here, and there's these wonderful foundations of Medill. Like I feel we still have those core values of great journalism, media ethics, story balance, knowing we want to be fair, that we want to fairly represent people's lives. You know, if we're walking into situations where people are victims, that we want to understand how they feel and how hard it is for those people to sometimes tell their stories and bring compassion. And that hasn't changed. Like since I came to school here, the technology is quantum leaps above what anything I would have imagined. But those core values of really finding people and telling their stories and, you know, hanging out with them and getting to understand what their lives are like and why their stories can be transformative to other people reading about them, why the stories we tell can help people make better decisions about their lives and work. So that's what you'll be hearing about more during this half hour. And we'll show you some of the stories on Medill Report Chicago. Michael, I think we all need to be up front before we pull around chairs.
Yeah. I thought you were going to handle the entire.
Oh, I just started talking about how much I love this place. So.
Okay, guys. I'll just pull one for Carter. Basically.
While we're getting ready, any immediate questions that anyone has?
Typical class sizes, either for the core curriculums or the electives, do they differ? Or they...
Yeah, I mean, for some of the electives, I'd say, you know, typically 10 to 15. For some of the core news reporting groups, like, for instance, social justice or health and science, it varies. But the thing is, there's usually an instructor or editor coach at a ratio of about 1 to 10 to 12 students, so that everything is very individualized, so that we're coaching you through every single story and working with you to make that story a learning experience, a creative experience, and a really solid reporting experience.
Most of our classes are capped at 16.
16?
Those are capped sometimes, so it depends on interest. We don't kick somebody out. I've been here 8 years, and the largest class I've taught, aside from the content lab, was 21. That was unusual. So we have a fairly intimate setting in the classrooms. And even in the content lab, well, last quarter we had 95 students. We had 18 editors.
Right.
Something like that. So the ratio is, we try to keep it 1 to 10. So you have an editor that, is your editor. The editor's not there, and the editor is your editor. So it's not like giant seminars and undergrad. It's a lot more, which is good and bad, right? if you're handling with somebody that you don't like, then it's it's kind of hard to hide, but it never happens. At least not with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Got a little post in the middle of the page there.
Firefox time.
Yeah, I know, Firefox.
We're going to talk about what we've done. We've got content lab.
Yep. Okay, so you've heard a little bit, we think by this point, about the basic framework of the program that you start in Q1, and you start with news writing, editing, and news judgment, with frameworks of journalism. So it's a mix. It's a mix of learning really solid reporting and editing skills, but also learning those news judgment skills, ethical concerns, and frameworks is all about what's media today, and what's it trying to do. And then Q2, you come down to the content lab. Methods will already start focusing on your specialization, depending whether you have one or not, or it'll give you more general, way of looking at media. But once you get down to the content lab, you really will start to intensely come into the area of expertise that you're hoping to develop as a reporter. Not just expertise, but passion. Most of you are coming here with a real sense of commitment. I want to tell stories about, and that's what we do in the content lab. We figure out great ways to tell stories in multimedia, great ways to be reporters. You're credentialed. Scott can tell you more about that. So you have a ticket to go cover Obama. He was here. He was here a week ago, and he was at the University of Chicago Law School, as some of you may know. And we had 5 credentialed reporters who had White House credentials in addition to the Medill Reports credentials.
Mentioned to graduate like 3 more.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. So 8 of us. I mean, almost as many Medill people as law students there. So we were well represented. We did a lot of stories. One of the stories was posted before Obama had even gotten to the airport. So it was, the real deal all the way along. Some stories are much more in depth and take a lot longer to do. But we're there with you. We're coaching you through, talking through the story angle you want to take. So it's a continuing process. We have a story planner, and that, again, as Brad said, it's about thinking through the story. How's the best way to look at this story? Who are the best sources? What kind of questions do I want? Obviously, any story in media today is going to fly onto the internet or be tweeted out into the social media world within a minute of it occurring. So you need to figure out what else you want to bring to that story, where you want to get into the heart of the story beyond that 30-second tweet or whatever else has already gone out on the web. So it's a thinking through process from the point where you start the story planner and identify sources to the point where you're working with that editor one-on-one to edit the story, edit the interactive graphics, to work through the idea for an animation that might go with the story or with the forward of the story a week later. So the stories are organic. They're living, and you take them in the best directions and most creative directions they can go.
Yep. And I always start with who's my audience. We kind of can't say exactly, right? Our main product is Medill Reports, our main website, which you see up here on the right-hand side. It does surprisingly good traffic for something that doesn't have a big media brand behind it. And we've had stories that when they get good social media exposure, can do 10, 15,000 visits, which is nothing to sneeze about. And what we do is we let Chicago be our laboratory, right? One of the greatest cities in the world, which recently has had some of the most amazing breaking news. And how many people heard of or saw the Donald Trump rally that didn't become a rally here, right? We had 6 students inside the auditorium, another 3 outside, right? I must say, one of the scariest moments I've had in a while was I'm watching CNN and I see the fight start breaking up. And I see that they've announced they're canceling it, and chaos is erupting. And I'm saying I have 6 reporters in there, and I don't know if they're okay. Right? It's a sinking feeling, right? It turns out that what you're saying on TV isn't the way things really are, and I know that, but I didn't know, I couldn't concede that. They were fine, because what you're seeing on the camera were the isolated pockets of people acting like idiots, right? They were all safe, right? But it was, when the history is writ, that rally, right, is probably going to be one of the turning points in the Trump campaign. Right? And we have grad students who have covered that. They have video and photos and stories about that. How many people have heard of the Laquan McDonald case last November? We had a fleet of people, quarter 1 and quarter 2 students covering that. Some really great coverage for a week. I was at home on Thanksgiving morning, cooking Thanksgiving dinner, editing stories about Laquan. Right? There was a big rally on Michigan Avenue the day after, being set up for. We can't guarantee those kind of stories. We wish we could. But if you're coming in the summer, your content lab in the fall, we have the election. Right? We will be covering the election, obviously. I've worked in newsrooms in Florida and Chicago, and I must say the buzz in our content lab a year and a half ago for the Chicago election was the most electric I've ever seen in a newsroom. We had, a team of 40 or so reporters. We had the biggest newsroom in the city. Right? Just think about that. You're in the biggest newsroom in the city focusing on one story. And it was electric. We had video students doing stand-ups. We put together 2 15-minute TV shows. We had students, video and text students out at all the major headquarters. It was an amazing night. I get in trouble later because I bought beer for the office. Whatever. I thought I could. It's funny, when we moved over here a few weeks ago, I still had a 6-pack of leftover from that night. I don't think I brought it. But what you do is, and you'll start, self-defining in your first quarter. Whether there's a passion you have, many of you with specializations already know, sports or business or whatever, right? And you can self-select and choose a beat in the content lab that is your specialization. You don't have to, right? You could decide you're in the sports concentration, and you decide you want to cover film, right? Or Chicago City Hall. You could do that if you wanted to. It's a general assignment newsroom in theory, but what we find is students like to have some parameters, right? And you guys all have passions. Typically, our beats fall down to urban, which Michael is teaching for years, which is covering the city and the people who live in the city. And there's no better city in the world now to cover than this one. It's got some major problems, but it also has some amazing, really good things too. Health and science is another really popular beat. There's amazing things with Abby and various others who are helping to teach it. We have a renowned business track that focuses on, you have to do earnings reports, and those aren't a lot of fun, but they're a great way to learn. And a pretty rigorous schedule of things to do to become a grounded business reporter. You also can do consumer business, right? If you don't want to do I want to work at Bloomberg track, right? We will accommodate and find a way for you to do a consumer business beat. So there's like 4 or 5 different areas we generally have. But if there's another beat you want to do that we don't cover, we'll try to accommodate that. We'll do at least 10 stories during the quarter of all kinds. I hear faculty say she's doing a print story, and I say, do you see any presses around here? We don't have print, right? We have that. We have cameras. We are a TV thing, right? We do video, we do text. We do all kinds of things. We don't do print, right? So again, you have a choice of the kinds of ways you want to tell your story. But most of you are just starting out, and you need to master something, right? And a lot of people choose text, a lot of people choose video. How many students are thinking they'd like to be video storytellers primarily? You know yet? Usually, it's very few now, but by the time we started, it's usually about a third of the cohort is video students. Video students are part of the content lab, but because of the intensity of technical training they need, they branch off for part of the day. And they're still part of the content lab, they're still covering stories. If you're coming in the summer and you're here in the fall, this will be the first time we're doing the content lab in the new facility. It should be great. It's equal in size to the other one. The other one had fixed desks, it had telephones, it used to have computers. You know, it was a classic old newsroom with cockroaches sometimes. This is meant to be, you know, mobile. You can go pull the table in the corner, you can go into the workrooms, or you can go and be on the street and cover the story. You know, I would rather people not be here all the time. You're supposed to be out reporting. It doesn't mean talking on your phone. It means going out talking face to face with people. We have some of the most dynamic neighborhoods in the world in Chicago. We go out to the neighborhoods and we do stories. And we do. We have a lot of stories around the city. It's going to be hard to leave here when you can watch the sunset over Navy Pier and the lake. You know, it's a great city. So I'm really excited about being in the new location. We have nearby, we have DNA Info, which is a really great local site. We have Fox News down the other corner of the building. CNN is across the river, NBC5 is across the river, Chicago Tribune's across the river. There's a lot of media cluster. I'll shut up there. If you go to medillreports.org, you'll see the last quarter we published 725 stories. A lot of stories. Many of them major national stories. Each student does about 10, some do more. And you work very closely with your beat editors. We have a cluster of editors for each beat topic. And we have specialists. So we ideally have somebody who's an audio specialist. And you just missed Chris Wall. Did you talk to Chris Wall?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Chris just stopped by.
Yeah.
Been in the elevator.
So again, we brought over our sound booth from the old building. It's sitting over here in the sound lab. We love audio, and then we try to include that as well. So, you know, think with the stories. The goal here is, I tell people, you don't succeed based on the story being published. You succeed based on your editor saying it's ready to be published. Right? So not everything you do may get published, but it's the process, right? Not the published result that's most important, particularly early on. And then you continue actually working, having content for Content Lab for the site in third quarter with advanced video classes, advanced reporting projects lined up on here as well. Some students in the first quarter did some work for the reports as well last time. So it's more a longer than just second quarter. If you really want to do reporting and do breaking news in particular, we can accommodate that. I'm done.
I think that's it. No, but would you add one more thing?
You had it.
Eurus,
Huh?
the Caesar story that generate all those hits on this.
Tell the story.
I don't remember the specifics. You know, I'm getting old.
Okay.
I'm getting old. Yeah, I'm
I think I really don't either. It was a case where extraordinary students did on a bankruptcy.
Yeah, exactly.
It seemed like the world's most boring story. It wasn't. It was really a good story. But it somehow involves some big shot in Canada and his girlfriend he's feuding with. And she made some nasty tweet about it. He made a tweet in response. And we did huge numbers of page views on this story. Who knew that a story about a bankruptcy in Chicago federal court could become a cause célèbre in Canada? And just little things like that, you get lucky. You know, we never would have planned that in 1,000 years.
Right, it was just, you know, this Shakespearean drama playing out through federal court.
Yeah, and that was a situation in which the urban and business worked together to put that story together. But it was really, it was highly successful. My name is Michael Deas, and actually, I think my esteemed colleagues, you know, really touched on the main points. Some of the things I would like to add, I would like to re-emphasize what Professor Anderson is talking about in terms of the city. Really take advantage of the city. I mean, it's a huge laboratory. I mean, as Professor Anderson said, Chicago is rich with stories. The only thing you have to do is just log online or just turn on the television, and Chicago is typically always in the news. Also, during your matriculation, I really encourage you to take advantage of the resources, not only the technology, but your human resources. Because your main objective, because this is a one-year program, your main objective is to get a job. And that's the bottom line, all right? So everything that you do, particularly beginning in your second quarter, I would encourage you to think about portfolio pieces. Whatever stories that you're writing, any stories that you're working on, consider those as possible portfolio pieces. So that should inspire you to basically do your best reporting and your best writing, right? Because you want to begin putting together your portfolio as soon as possible, because the year goes by quickly. Right? My colleagues are well connected here, so even whether you take a particular instructor or not, I encourage you to at least put yourselves on their radar screen. All right, because as time approaches or graduation time approaches, we realize that networking is quite important. Talked about the portfolio. I don't know whether many of you have websites, but perhaps during your time here you can create a website so you can keep your pieces together. So in the event that you should happen to, well, you will. When you begin applying for jobs or seeking jobs, you'll already have something in place. And in terms of career changers, how many of you earned your bachelor's degree in journalism? So about 4 or 5 of you. Okay, good. So I presume the rest of you are career changers. Just to get some idea, those of you who are more or less career changers, could you give me some idea of your backgrounds? Starting over here.
I'm an English major, but I'm pretty much focused on journalism. I work for the school paper, and I write, many articles. So focus on journalism, just didn't major.
Okay, English major, all right. How about yourself, sir?
I'm his dad, so that's been my career.
Oh, you know what? I was staring at you. I was trying not to stare at you. I was thinking, okay, we're.
You done a fine job.
Okay, you. Okay, my curiosity is okay. Taking care of that. Okay. How about you, Miss?
I was an entomology major, so completely different.
Wow.
Yeah, I just recently considered journalism, but it seems to be the right fit after.
Wow. Actually, that's going to be quite useful in this profession.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How about yourself, Miss?
I was journalism, political science.
Journalism, political
Yeah.
science. Okay.
So, sounds good.
Okay. Well, we hope to enhance the experience then. Okay.
Journalism and international studies.
Journalism, international studies. Good.
Want to do international
Journalism reporting.
All right. Awesome. Good.
Journalism.
Journalism.
English master's degree, started a PhD, but I decided this was the best route. And just MBA courses, so that's why I want to do the business.
Awesome.
Nice.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I got a classics degree.
What kind?
Classics,
Really?
Platinum degree.
From where?
Colby College, man.
I live in Africa. Yeah. Africa.
That's an easier or fast, you're a fast learner. You learn to
Pardon?
skip over the dads. You
Yeah. Well,
I'm wondering if the $120,000 investment.
I clearly understand having put 2 sons through school, my 32-year-old, my 26-year-old. I understand what it means to write out those checks. So yeah, I understand. I would be doing the same thing.
Journalism and film.
Journalism and film.
Journalism, but spent the last 5 years in politics, so.
Okay, good. Good. Well, you're in the right city.
This is a sport here.
Yeah, just for DC too. That's where I work.
And how about yourself, yes?
English and comm with a journalism concentration.
Okay. You said nutrition? What? Oh,
No,
I'm sorry.
concentration. We don't have journalism major.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, gotcha.
Journalism and international studies.
Okay, that's.
I'm her dad.
Okay, no, that isn't going to work. That isn't going to work.
I was an international studies major at Spanish minor.
Okay, you made my day. Okay, I was about to leave.
Political science, so I've been working as a freelance journalist for a year or so.
Perfect, perfect. Well, the point is, really, some of the best journalists with whom I've ever worked, believe it or not, didn't start out in journalism or didn't even possess journalism degrees. All right, the backgrounds included economics, political science, English, literature. In my case, it was graphic design. All right, I'm an artist. This is my third career. Journalism was my second or third career. So I made a number of career changes along the way. But what you'll find is that everything that you've done, everywhere you've gone, is relative. Okay, when you're working on a story, everything is relative. Anthropology, politics, international affairs, even depending on where you're going to, the classics. All of these play a role in journalism. So really, you're bringing a lot to the table. Okay, there are a number of people who have studied journalism before, but what you'll find, all of you will be able to work together and learn from one another. All right, so you're not starting. You're starting. All of you will be starting at the same point. All right, and you'll be astonished in terms of how much you'll learn from one another. Okay, and how much the faculty will learn from you guys as well, because you know what you're going to be reporting. So every time you report a story, actually, I'm always learning something new, because no one has a monopoly on knowledge. All right, so everyone's in the same boat. Enjoy the experience. Okay.
What questions do you have?
Do any of y'all three go abroad, take students abroad and report from abroad?
You know, in the health and science program, I don't go abroad with the students, but we do what we call embedded reporting, and this kind of filters through other areas. We find science field research teams. We've had students go and track the retreat of the glaciers in Mongolia, look at sediment changes in Greenland, showing just how quickly climate change is occurring there. Students have gone literally diving in cenotes, which are freshwater caves in the Yucatan, showing that with sea level rise, ocean saltwater is now infiltrating freshwater aquifers. We've had students go to New Zealand to a language research institute. Students go to Munich to look at nanotechnology and sustainability approaches there. So, and this plays out throughout the program. Students go with professors to Germany, to Israel, to South Africa, really a global program. And we have global campuses. We have a campus in Qatar, we have a campus in San Francisco, in DC, here in Chicago, a global network of resources and opportunities. So truly, truly global.
In fact, Professor Garnett, who was supposed to join us, is leaving the end of the quarter for a trip with students to Germany. And we have another group going back to Israel, I think, later in the summer. So at any given time, we have students somewhere in the world. And we faculty, Mr. Deas and I, last summer were in China for a week, visiting Jinan University there. And we have a relationship with them to train faculty as well.
Students were looking during winter at some of the social issues and social concerns in Argentina and other areas across the globe. So many, many opportunities for you to bring the world to your reporting, to enrich your reporting with what's going on in other cultures and other places, so that you can understand better what's happening here, that you can look at what's happening here through this global prism and understand that people differ, cultures differ, and yet the universalities of all people and cultures trying to come together and having the same needs and goals is very much there. And to understand that, to be able to feel that, is something that Medill has committed to.
We have a video student who in the fourth quarter documentary class, her parents fled Cuba back in the 60s, and her dad has never been back. For her project, she is going to take her dad back to Cuba and do a documentary on him going back home. She says he remembers everything. He can look at it like a map and say what was here, what was there. It's just fascinating to think of the connection, you know, that's going to be made by her going back with her. Fabulous story. You know,
Yeah.
Medill, that's what you can do at Medill. Right?
We went to the opera last quarter with a group of students, and it was Nabucco, and at the close of the opera, one of our students was just so moved, she was crying. And we talked to her, and she told us that her grandparents had worked in opera, and that during the purge in China, during the Great Revolution, her grandfather's work had been purged. And he was in prison for a while, he was no longer able to work in opera. And that, you know, that memory and the story she'd heard had just suddenly all come to life on this stage in Chicago, so many thousands of miles away. So what you bring from your past and every aspect of your life plays through what you'll do here and the way you report.
Any sports people here? So you see here, right down there, in a couple of weeks, will be the second NFL draft held in Chicago. And we'll have 6 or 8 grad students down there covering it. I'm going to publish this time on Medill as well as our site. Thinking we're going to try and see what happens in very high interest stories. I spent 10 minutes putting together a little publication, get it going. But again, it's an extremely high profile event that happens to be in our backyard again. And it's not going to be cool just to get out and walk around. It's amazing what how they transform the print book. And we just got the call from the back of the room.
Right.
Right?
All right. We'll be here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.